All right, so let's jump right into this. So I've opened Adobe Dimension, and I'm gonna change my canvas size to 2400 by 3000, and just fit canvas so you can see everything in the right view. And the first thing we're gonna wanna do is get our terrain model in there. So we're gonna click File, Import, 3D Model. Click Lonely Pass. Lonely Pass for a lonely girl. Okay. And then I'm gonna click off just so you can see that this imports super tiny. It also imports white, so it's hard to see on this background. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just add a matte, and that's just so we can see it better. And then I like to use whatever the heck this type of tool is called, because you kind of have all the sizing and rotating options. You have size, rotate, and scale all in one place. You can also hard press on this in the left-hand toolbar and just pick one specific tool if you're trying to work in one area and you don't want these other things in the way. So I'm gonna hover on the scale Y, hold Shift, and then just click to drag that so everything stays proportionate. And let's just get this, I don't know, somewhere around 50 pixels. And then I also hold Shift when I rotate, just because it's a little more uniform. And then I just drag up to move it. So instead of worrying about like getting the actual object fully positioned and sized to what you want, I actually like to use the camera tools to do that. And so you've got all these different things you can do with the camera here. You can orbit, you can pan, you can dolly. Okay, so I'm gonna click on camera, click on, what does this rotate again? Orbit tool. And this is like my best friend when I'm doing these things, because I feel like I get most of the positioning done with this. So I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna dolly in. Just kind of play with the scene. I'm gonna probably adjust this tons of times, you know, before I pick my final piece. For now, I think this is looking pretty nice, so I'm gonna leave it as is for now. One thing you can do is you can make bookmarks for your camera. I'm gonna call this an initial view. And what happens is if later down the road you like do something crazy where, I don't know, you rotate the camera all over the place and you don't know how to get back, you can just click initial view and it just goes back to what you set. So the next thing we want to do is add a material. So if you click File, Import, place material on selection, find your material. I chose Desert Rock Porous for this, which is one of the ones you can download from Adobe stock. I like to repeat it twice because you just get a little bit more detail. And that's looking nice. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to add another model, but this one's going to be one that's out of the box that comes with Dimension, and I'm going to add a plane. And I'm just going to make this plane, I'm going to lock this and then make this plane like 200 by 200. And then move it up. Ooh, and it's like a, oh my God, there's a flood. So let's figure out, I think, I like having that little bit of like a bridge, or like, I imagine like a walkway that like a hiker would discover. I'm gonna move forward and adjust the scene a little more. All right, I think I'm happy with that. I'm gonna do view 2. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I'm selecting my plane, and let's add a metal material because I want this to sort of act like a river, so I need something reflective. And if you click that, you can see that it's a super reflective surface. This is render preview. I use it a lot once I start to get into adding materials that have like more complex lighting or detail to them. Or when you add lighting elements to your scene, you can see that we're reflecting like this black sky in the water, and that's because we haven't set anything in our environment yet. So I think that's a good segue to doing this. If you click environment, click background, and add an image. And then also in environment light, click image. And instead of having this like default studio lighting, it's gonna match the image and sort of make fake light out of the image, which I think is super cool. Come on, computer, you can do it. The next thing I think we should do is let's add some light. Let's add some sun. So if you go, this is the filter by lights. This is sun. You can see it's already shining here. These are your sun settings. Ba-doom-ch. Just move on to adding our reflection. So we're back in models and I'm looking for the cube. So I click that and you'll see it imports gigantic. So what we're gonna wanna do is move this into the scene. Make it a little smaller and thinner. Actually, I know this is going to be super thin. Like 0.1 I know for sure is pretty much where I want to be. And so now I'm just playing with getting the position of our mirror. I can't tell what's going to be reflected right now just because I don't have anything, I don't have a material set on here. So we're going to do what we did before and go back to materials and set this to metal as well. And let's just do a quick preview. And that's actually pretty close, closer than I anticipated for what we would see in the shot. So while I'm making adjustments to this, I like to just keep render preview on because it's going to help us see what we're doing in real time. Oop, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to go back to cube. We're not touching the camera settings. We're using the select tool to just make some small adjustments. See what that does. You'll make this a little taller. And I'm going to play with the rotation a little more. You'll notice that the controls for this are pretty sensitive, so a little bit goes a long way. So I really like that. One kind of fun trick you can do is you can rotate X. It's really sensitive and kind of pop the mirror forward or backward to try to get this to line up a little better. And I think that looks really nice. You know, I might play with the size a little more. position. There we go. So that is the general premise of how you can make a geometric reflection in Adobe Dimension. You can try lots of different materials. I stick with the metal for the reflective areas because I found from my exploration of creating these that seemed to be the best one for keeping the reflection as I liked, but switching the image in the environment and the terrain and the lighting, you can create endless combinations of options, which I think is just super amazing. The other really cool thing about Dimension is, let's say you built this, but you're like, oh crap, I actually want something that's 6,000 by 6,000. You can just resize your canvas and then go back in, make some adjustments to your shot with your camera, and you're good to go. You don't lose any quality no matter what size you work in. So you can start working small and just make a giant canvas size later for your final render. The bigger the canvas size, obviously the longer the render is going to take. So you've got a few options in here. I like to render high quality PSDs. At least for my final render, I usually check a few like medium or smaller PNGs throughout the process just to make sure I like the way all the details settle in the render. You also get this option for this cloud beta. You get 15 credits. Yeah, because I'm doing a large size, it's 3 credits, but you get 15 credits per month. This is having Adobe do the render for you on their servers. It is lightning fast. I highly recommend, saving those for when you have an export that you're really sure you're happy with, and, just do a gigantic high-res PSD. And instead of, having to take up knitting because it's going to take like 8 hours to process, it gets done super quick. So that's pretty cool. All right, so that is Geometric Reflections meeting Adobe Dimension.